Hey there, guys, and welcome to episode 2 of Rick and Pete. And today we talk about the coronavirus because that's just what's on our mind, and that just seems at the forefront of everything at the moment. So we talk about the coronavirus and we talk about different ways of looking at the coronavirus, different ways that it's affected us or not affected us, and what this could mean for us as a planet, and how this is an unprecedented, completely new thing that's happened to the planet. This has never happened before. And what this might mean for our planet as a whole. Enjoy the video, guys.
Today is the 26th of March 2020, with Peter and Richard getting together for one of our periodic chats about life and the universe and coronavirus and whatever else. Antivirus, I'm told today, has come up on my screen, but oh goodness. Anyway, we'll see. So it's quite a period of change, isn't it? With this breaking everybody's routine. It's like when the routine is there and you're too busy. It's like, yeah, you can talk about this, but you've got to go to work and you've got to do this and so forth. In the workaday world, there's not a lot of time for reflection. But in the current circumstances, there's time for reflection. Old patterns are being broken and parked, and so I'm curious to see what will happen at by the end of this. I think people will have changed. One of the big things, Peter, I'm feeling at the moment. I mean, I can see that people are going to be working more from home. Clearly, remote connection is going to become established. I mean, remote's been growing anyway. So that's going to be like a fillip in the arm for virtual reality and so forth, those technologies that are coming. But I'm wondering about a shift in attitude to money. So, I mean, here's a very crude take, So power seems to relate actually to the kind of digits that you put on, one has on a piece of paper. The bank says, "Well, I've got this number," and they say, "Okay," and then you give a bit of your number to somebody, and then you get lots of things for it. And when that's in a way related to exchange in a very clear way, that's kind of been working. I mean, when we were related to having money backed by gold, that was clearly a potent standard. But now the system's been tested because they're just saying, "Oh, well, people can't work. Well, never mind. As the government will just issue lots of numbers to everybody." I say, okay, so if that's the case, if we can issue 2 trillion or whatever it is in the US, and everybody gets a payment of $1,200 in the US or whatever it is, why not issue 2,000 trillion, and then everybody could have $100,000 each?
But the question there is that would devalue the currency by adding lots of currency, and then there would be high inflation. That's another perspective.
Well, yes, but you see, that's what's being done now. So is that going to wreck the currencies? I mean, but you've got to remember, inflation as well is partly it's based against what's happening in other countries. So if all countries are now just saying, "Oh, we all need to issue money, so everything's equal," I mean, they're not exactly equal, of course. They're going to go up 10% or even half some currencies and so on. But if and inflation has been really, really small recently, been very, contained, and what's happening is we're getting things that are delivering more and more value for less and less money, as seen, epitomized by these devices, which deliver. They tell me, well, this was a couple of years back when they were assessing the value of all the kit that went in that from, about 10 years previously was valued at about $1 million US dollars. And you needed a car to carry all the kit around in. And then you get for, well, smartphones from £40 or something. You don't have to pay. Go and get an iPhone. Extraordinary. So we're on the change. So I just wonder what is going to happen. I mean, I think these governments are letting the cat out of the bag if they're saying, oh, well, we just need to issue a number to everybody. So, okay, all right. I lost you. Sorry?
The question is, where are they getting that money from? Or are they just printing more money because they're the government?
Well, you just issue it. I mean, you issue, and it's not even printing because it's not even physical.
It's just a bank account number,
Yeah. So, I mean, I can send you, can send $2 trillion to your account. Well, whether anybody will allow you to spend it's another matter. But if it's come from the government and they say, okay, well, it's just mixed in with all the other currency, it's no different. They are issuing it as debt. I think mostly I'm noticing that it's not just free handouts. I think it does seem to be debt. Although I think maybe the $1,000 that seems to be going to every citizen in America, it possibly is a handout. But yeah, so we may think, why am I running around for numbers on a page? And what's my life about? Well, what's actually the significant and important pieces of my life? Showing up and getting some extra numbers in this thing. It's got me thinking. Anyway, it's got me thinking about this whole process of exchange. It has not discouraged me from working at the moment. Carrying on putting through all the business stuff. It's been going very well. The business side for me, and I'm in that fortunate position of having built a business that I was working remotely extensively in the 90s. So from the beginning of the 90s, I was working with remote control technologies then and running systems that I'd stored in Frankfurt and Paris and so forth that were largely just automated. I used to need a person to go and switch the kit off when it needed a reboot every now and then. But I even managed to find some telephone device which could switch power on and off. So I'd ring this other thing and it would switch power off to the computer and then give it a reboot. So traditional thing when all else had failed with all the PCs and systems I was looking at. But yeah, what do you think? I mean, how's this affecting you? How's it affecting your work?
So my work personally, because I work in the building industry, the work still continues as normal. They closed the builders merchants down temporarily, but it sounds like they're going to be reopening them. My boss has a very cut and dry perspective on this because he just thinks that the building industry is far too large for everybody to be paid. So they're just going to keep it going. And in the building industry, we're not actually touching each other that often. And let's be honest, you can't remote building industry. Like you have to be there physically to do the labor. We're continuing as usual. My girlfriend has been laid off work because although she has a full-time contract, she's working in the food industry where that's just been completely shut down. All events have been shut down. But there will be an 80% of her wages paid, although that's not yet come through. But we'll see as time progresses. But everything's quite chill over here. Like I've been personally quite relaxed about it. Christina's handling it quite well. She's like, I've got a month holiday where I can follow my own interests and do these things, and I have the time to do yoga every day and to just really just give myself that nourishment that I would like to provide myself. Sudden, I'm in much closer connection to the rest of my family. my mom, my dad, we're all just like keeping in contact all the time, like checking up on each other. How's the situation going? And a few friends as well. So it's actually brought community in, even though everybody's social distancing. There's that closeness and that checking up on people and that care that seems to have arisen on my end. How's it affected you personally, perhaps business-wise?
Business-wise, it hasn't affected me adversely as yet. All the people I'm working with are just carrying on doing what they're doing, and since my business predominantly runs, 70%, 75% of it is in the US, probably now. 10% down in Australia and 10% out in the Middle East and maybe 5% in the UK, that sort of thing. So obviously all my stuff is remote, and people are continuing to need the accounting tools that we provide. So that that side of things continues, but it certainly feels different. There's a different energy. There's a different energy with people, and so I think there was this quiet period for reflection for a lot of people, and we'll see where we go with it. So, sorry?
A friend of mine at work theorized that he thought that after this period, divorce rates might actually go up because husbands and wives might actually have to spend close time together for an extended period of time. And I was like, what? Isn't that like an awesome thing? It's like a holiday. You get to spend time together. And he was like, yeah, but not everybody's like me and you, Peter, that have a loving relationship. A lot of people just argue when they're just together for ages. And I think a lot of issues that are there, they'll have to be faced, or people will run away from them. But there's an opportunity there for space and facing things and old shit that's just not been looked at. It's just gonna gurgle up. So it is intense for a lot of people, this energy at the moment. But if people work through what comes up and what comes out through this space that's arisen, I think this can be a really positive shift forward, because I think there will be like different ends of the spectrum where some people experience this intensity and then lash out or run away from it, but there'll be a lot of people that also experience that and just sort of accept it, deal with it, and then move forward from it and really grow through this experience. So I think it's polarizing in that way as well, because not everybody has that. Not everybody wants to grow. We live in a free world system, like free will system, where everybody does have a choice, and some people are having like complete annihilation of their whole system happen right in front of their eyes, and they're just devastated. And some people are having complete annihilation of their prior beliefs and systems happening before them, and they're exhilarated at this new opportunity to create a new system and a new change. So it's interesting that some people are making the best out of this situation, and some people are just in tatters over it and just can't accept the intensity. What are some tools that you would suggest for somebody that was finding this particularly challenging?
Let's just tune on that for a moment and see what suggestions come forth. There was a quote that I rather like from a conversation with God group that I have a connection with. Now, let me just pull that up. It said Conversation with God is a kind of series of books written by someone called Neil Donald Walsh. It's been around for a while and there's quite powerful books. And here was just one quote. There's a kind of quote of the day thing. And this was from a couple of days ago. If you think your life is about doing this, you do not understand what you're about. Your soul doesn't care what you do for a living. And when your life is over, neither will you. Your soul cares only about what you're being while you're doing whatever you're doing. So people are going to be confronted with different situations, but if there is a possibility to sit back a bit and be looking at who you're being, so you can be the worrier, you can be the person looking at how disastrous a situation is, or you can be the observer of that beingness, and you can start to choose a different beingness. So you might be using a calm, to take on a calmness, to be a person who can be calm when things around are looking difficult. That could be a remarkable skill. So you could be working on building a skill of your choosing that you like, that is inspiring and uplifting, whilst in the midst of external challenges. So therefore, this opportunity for personal growth really presented in all situations, in all circumstances. And that growth comes through looking at who you are going to act as, who you're going to be in that situation. Then you could be in a really beautiful situation or a really challenging situation, but you can still be choosing and you can still be, being who you would like to be in those different kinds of situations. So you can find something that you can like, and you start to flow some good energy. It's easier to say the words sometimes than be in some of the very difficult situations. I think that but if it's not actually life-threatening, it's not a life-threatening situation you're in, there is that opportunity to review.
I think a lot of people feel that there is an aspect of this that is life-threatening, in the sense that, like, if you get the virus, you could die. But there is also the aspect that most people do recover from this virus. But I totally agree, because we don't control our circumstances. However, the way we react to those and our actions, we're in complete control over, and we can choose what our response to that. And we do have the power to bring in some information, some positivity, some lightness to that energy to move forward.
Yes, and it's humor is always good as well. So you can bring a bit of humor into situations. I mean, perhaps there might be quite a few people in the country, I would think, who could really celebrate because they've got a stash of toilet rolls in the cupboard. Whereas it sounds like some haven't. Where that one, I mean, that's like, how on earth did I could understand if people couldn't get food, oh my God, we've got to get to the store because there's just no more bread or there's no more milk or something fundamental. But actually, toilet roll is the key seller. Oh.
Full of food, and toilet roll isn't nearly as essential as food, because most people have a toilet and a shower in the same room, and if worse comes to worse, you go to the toilet and then you jump in the shower and, like, you'll be all right. You're not gonna, like, die. There's plentiful in the supermarkets. There's, like, bread's a bit rare these days, but you can get most other food. And yeah, and where I live, the supermarkets, they've got like massive queues, and it's really hard to get in. And when you get in, like
Oh,
there's that much here and there because I live in London. But we have like corner shops and Turkish shops that sell the same stuff, and they're full, and there's no queues, and there's plenty inside, and nobody's actually accessing the smaller markets. There's a few people that have gone out of the like out into the countryside a bit for a drive to go to a Tesco or whatever. This is also an opportunity to value smaller businesses, because all the smaller businesses, they still have plenty of stock, and people are just going to supermarkets because they want to just stock up, and it's interesting. But there is plenty of everything. But it's weird about the toilet roll. And it's cool that you said about humor, because I like on Facebook, there's so many jokes about the toilet roll now. It's like a big meme. I saw a like Jesus on in that story where he gets like 6 loaves of bread and like 6 fish, and then he spreads it out into the masses, and they photoshopped it so he's holding up a toilet roll.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good. I mean, I think that one started in Japan, didn't it? And then because they sold out in Japan, everybody said, "What, toilet rolls?" So it's one of those. I mean, that's the way I see that one. I don't know if that's right. Oh, some fireworks going off outside. Very nice.
Yeah, I heard some claps from outside. I'm like, what is happening out there?
Oh. Yeah. It's not November the 5th. Wrong time of the year. We didn't fast forward while we were chatting. Very good. Yeah. So anyway, Peter, I find it really interesting. As to how this will play out. So I think we'll feel a bit differently about money. I mean, when you think of all the tax that's spent and all the careful planning and all the restrictions on what can be built for the NHS and what can't, and then you say, well, let's just have whatever the country, it's not about what it can afford. If we normally issue £1 trillion a year, let's issue 5 trillion this year. You know, we don't care, we'll just do it. Very different attitude. So I think we're going to have a different attitude towards money. I think there's going to be a rebalance between power and freedom. So power and freedom can be a little bit opposed. As, you know, that money, it does give freedom to those that have it. But for many people, it's therefore it's kind of like a power over. There's a power over people because people have to work long hours in order to get the money that's needed to meet those needs. But I think what may happen is that people may realise that actually they can get by a bit better than they had thought with less money or doing things differently. We may become very creative about the things that we do, about entertain. I mean, when you think, I mean, a lot of things, a lot of non-essential things basically are shut now, aren't they? The whole entertainment world. I mean, think of all the football, all the sporting events. I mean, Olympics itself has moved back a year. They're not absolutely essential, are they?
No.
We can get along without those. So then you ask, well, what is important? What's actually important? And I think that in the busyness of day-to-day life, people don't really get to ask that question. Whereas I think even for those of us that are carrying on working, this still, okay, well, what really is important here?
Well, in my own life, what like at the moment, what I've noticed is we've scaled back on a lot of things, and actually, like even with the money that we do have, we actually have plenty of money. In fact, during this time so far, because we've stopped spending on any extra things that we don't need and we're just buying the essentials, I've actually saved more in the last month than I have in the last many months. And we've sort of also we've literally like looked inwards and we've been like, actually, we could be saving a lot more. And we don't and we can actually create entertainment far simpler than we thought we could. And we went to a charity shop and I bought 8 board games for £8, and we've got board games now like forever. And just like board games at home with family, having that connection. Like, do we need to go to the cinema? Can we not watch our movies at home? Like, where do we need to go to do things? And a lot of people, like, I went to work, and a lot of people are a bit sad that there's no pub to go to. And I'm like, well, can't you just like go home? And even if you want to drink, you could just invite mates round and like socially drink at home. Like, there are many solutions for our entertainment that are far cheaper, and obviously, like, it assists the economy and things if we're out spending and all these things. But I agree that we could be far more creative about our entertainment. And all of a sudden, so many people are at home, and somebody on Facebook was doing like a beginner's drumming class on Facebook Live, and you can just like get your bin, turn it upside down, and you're just drumming and you're having this good time and you're connecting with all these people. And it's not really costing you anything. And if you have a bit more money, you can just donate to the person that's hosting the event. You can do all these things from home, or even like when this clears, like in community. But I agree that this is going to create a lot more creativity in how we connect and how we do things, and that we can actually survive with a lot less than we thought. And we've been just, spending more than we needed to, I guess, in reflection. Not that there's anything wrong with spending.
No, not at all. I mean, and that same money becomes very circular then, because when you spend it, use it, it goes to somebody else who's now got money that they can spend, and so forth. And so actually the money circulating in different hands, the same piece of money, unlike kind of food where you consume your piece of food, the money just goes around and it supports people. So move around rapidly is it can do a lot of work for a lot of.
Yeah.
Like the old principle of running a shop and turning over your stock quickly. So, yeah, nothing wrong with the spending of money. And it's, of course, it's an energetic representation.
It shows appreciation.
It shows
appreciation. And if you value a certain system or the way that something's working, you want to support that. That's why more people are moving to purchasing food that's come from a better source. And then there's less appreciation for the old ways of bringing about food that's a bit more destructive and harmful to the environment from which the food's extracted. And then slowly our support is going towards things that are more sustainable and that are more creative in a way. But at the same time, there is still the price differences and things. But I think that things are shifting along the way as we're changing what we appreciate. But also we are getting in this time more creative about how we create entertainment, in the sense that it doesn't money. You can just create events. I've created events before where, like, I decided that I haven't played games in the park since I was like a teenager. Why don't I just make a free event where, because I will just enjoy playing games with a bunch of adults in the park, and then just create that event, and then loads of strangers can come and we can just play frisbee and like kick a ball around and do different games, and people come and you have a great time. And it's like, we can just do this, and like nothing's stopping us from connecting and creating things.
Yeah, I think that creativity definitely is going to be engaged. And of course, with the ability to connect that we have across internet now, then even though you're in your home, it's easy to engage. My sister, who has been fairly recently bereaved, had taken up bridge as something that she was spending a bit of. It was helping her to meet people and so forth. Having lost her husband, that. So instead of going around to people's homes now, she can just switch to doing some of that online. So some things that this online piece is really helpful. And actually, if we weren't online as a community, we wouldn't even be able to have the lockdown.
No.
I mean, how if you found out there was a lockdown? It would be a lot more difficult, really, to coordinate. So yeah, so I mean, some things are going to be in trouble. Some things will grow as they do in different circumstances. And then I'm anticipating a degree of order restoring itself in around about the end of the year. I'm not sure what's going to happen before, but maybe. I've been surprised about the success of lockdowns. It seems that in South Korea, they had some escalation of the virus, and they seem to have had quite a successful lockdown there. And I mentioned South Korea because I think South Korea would be a source that I could trust the figures. I'm not too sure about China. China seems to have had a successful lockdown, but of adding very few extra cases. But it seems to me it's adding too small a number of cases, people who must have been exposed. So I don't entirely trust that.
So you think that the dust will settle by the end of the year then?
I think it will on this one. This virus will have done the rounds before then, and I think people will have immunity or, in some cases succumbed and moved on somewhere else. Yes, unless there's going to be this kind of this development of the virus, where it actually switches into being something else, a new strand. So the fact that the virus can evolve might make a difference. Or maybe, just maybe, we're coming to a period where for some reason viruses are coming up. I mean, I just read today, was it the hantavirus? That was it. Somebody initiated a report on that, and you think, oh, well, we don't need, we've got the one virus, that's enough. No, thanks. The idea of having more than one is
But when you said a year, I almost was thinking because in my head I thought the virus would kind of disappear in another 2-3 months mostly. But then with year, I was actually thinking even if the virus does disappear by 4 more months, for the dust to really settle economically and for things to come into a new groove and a new way of being, it probably would be by the end of the year. Because there's an economic settle that needs to happen as well, and things to return to a new way, in a sense. So there's the dust settling of the virus, but also of the community and how we come out of this experience.
Well, once all the air travel sort of starts up again, there's could be issues there because, I mean, if there is going to be a gradual building of immunity within the community, which is happening, some models of the virus have taken the effect that actually it's already spread quite substantially, and that it's to a limited degree in a lot of people who are establishing their own immunity system. And that therefore we're going to reach a natural point where the virus doesn't really go any further because people have been building their immunity. I don't know whether that's true or not, Peter. So
I was listening to Satguru speaking online, and he said something very interesting because when he was younger, he'd studied some biology books and things like this on viruses. And he said that, from as far as he's aware, when a virus goes around, the natural state of the virus is that it actually doesn't want to kill its host. So often when a virus does kill its host, it's because the person that's infected by the virus, they're not strong enough, or they already have some kind of underlying health issue, and that's why a death occurs. But more often than not, a virus actually wants to coexist with a host, like permanently. So there was a particular, I don't remember the exact disease, but it's actually quite like, it used to be quite a scary disease. But you could test most of the population in India today for that disease, and you would actually find that they will all test, like most people in India will test positive for that disease, because that disease has actually got into them. They've not just built an immunity to it, they've actually built a symbiosis where that virus, because we actually have plenty of viruses and bacteria and different things living in with us, that is like a symbiotic relationship. We have trillions of cells, and there's a symbiosis going there, and they don't want to kill this breeding ground of nourishment that is our bodies. They want to symbiotically coexist with this organism. They don't want to kill the planet. Obviously, from our perspective, this is it's a different way, and there are people dying, and this is not a good thing. But there is a level to which most healthy people are just building a natural immunity or a symbiosis with this. And my mom said the other day, like, she reckons like pretty much everyone's got it. It's just that not everyone's showing signs, and most people have just like, they're just fine with it. So I don't think we know. And there's a lot of people that might just actually have a cold, and you don't. So there's a lot of very interesting questions that are being brought up as to how in the future we deal with things like this, and if it's actually something that we need to deal with as aggressively as this time. Another question is, if nobody had known about coronavirus, like no one had given it a name, like you said, the reason we can do these lockdowns is because of connection we have on the internet. If we didn't have the internet, nobody would have thought there's like this epidemic going around. They would have just thought there's a flu that's gone around, and some people that have already had some underlying issues have died. A few random cases of healthy people have also occurred, and no one would have noticed. Particularly, I don't know if that's the case. Maybe it is worse than I'm describing it, but that's how the perspective I'm feeling. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I concur with that one. Yeah. Well,
Because as callous as it sounds, people do die every day. And I mean, the statistic is that 2,000 people die on the planet every day of cold and flu. And there's so many people dying of smoking related things and drink. Like, there's so many people dying all the time, and there's all these epidemics of conditions and things that are going around. We're not spreading around nutritional advice nearly as like, but this also shows the power of world cooperation and how quickly action and cooperation can come about if the world unites under a matter. So if we could do this to combat climate change, or to combat economic issues, or sorting out other issues, there's a lot of power that can come through cooperation and spreading this global awareness on topics.
yes.
And are really potent as a race. We can really sort things out when we want to.
Yes. We have some very bright minds indeed. There are some very bright minds focused on this virus in particular, but I mean, things that can come out of this, it may be that we actually get to have a much better understanding of viruses and can start to deal not just with this virus, but possibly a much wider basket of viruses and potential future viruses, so that we don't never have these kind of situations again. So it's hard to see, well, there's no point in judging outcomes here. It's just going with the flow for a while, and we make the best of the situation. And I think that individual, a positive personal outlook is really helpful in circumstances. And so whatever thought process it is that helps one to, maintain a positive attitude, I think is really, really useful.
So I guess keep calm and carry on.
Yes.
So,
it's a funny thing. I was having a beautiful discussion with Mary Beth just a couple of days ago, and we were looking at these changes in perspective you have. You have a certain perspective, and then you see life in a completely different way, or an aspect of life in a completely different way. Now, the way you feel about it changes because you're now looking through a different lens at something, hopefully with better understanding and better fit and better able to adopt to that. But it's that old statement of, chop wood and carry water, before enlightenment and after enlightenment. Well, that doesn't sound like much fun. I was getting past that. But when you have that different perspective, then the experience changes. And I think it is an interesting one, this one of perspective. I've been noticing in dealing with difficult circumstances recently that for me, an idea or a perspective could land quite strongly, emotionally quite strongly. And in the past, I would, might go with that. I feel strongly about something, so therefore I'm going to go with it. Now I've understood that when I have a strong viewpoint, well, I have a strong viewpoint looking from this perspective. But then just waiting for another day or two and allowing different perspectives to land, then you see it from a different viewpoint, and then you see it from another one, then you see it from another. And then, if you have, sometimes you haven't got time for this, but if you have got a bit of time to allow things to land, then maybe you can collect, 10 or 15 viewpoints on the topic. And now you can see different ways of dealing with it from all those different perspectives. Then becomes the dawning of wisdom, because now you have more choice. And one of the things as well that I have found is that when there's a situation which seems to call for a bit of urgency, my mind is like wanting to come up with the answer now, now, come on, we got to fix this now. The mind, all the mind knows is what it knows now. By waiting, what I understand is that this waiting is allowing ideas to come to me. It's kind of like you put your hand up into a slightly celestial space or whatever. You say, well, I'm interested in this topic, I'm curious about it. And then you start attracting people. It's like you put a magnetically charged something there, you've set it. And now additional ideas start to land. And if you give yourself time for ideas to land, then you start to form these more informed and inspired viewpoints, which are valuable. Sometimes on some topics, we're building those viewpoints over years. But I think now there's more opening, and there's an ability to have more viewpoints land quickly and to gain an experience and a better wisdom and balance in a much shorter time than it took before. And in that opening, what I have felt, and Mary Beth, my partner, was commenting on that as well, with this coronavirus, it's disrupted the normal patterns. It's like the normal patterns are almost like an eggshell. They kind of contain everything, and everything's going round in wheels, within this thing. But the coronavirus has cracked that shell. That don't work anymore. Going to the pub doesn't work anymore. So restaurants, places of entertainment, lots of things, it's just not working anymore. Air flights, travel, it's not working anymore. Even giving your best friend a hug now like, oh. But with that cracked, there is initially, it's like it allows in a lot of unwelcome thoughts. So I think this is worth something. It's like it's like the defense is breached a bit, and the first thing that comes in is all the fears that was holding at bay. So the fact that I've got my steady job and I'm in things means I can pay my mortgage, and I've got all this covered and I can do these things and I can cut. So I've got it all together, provided I keep the ball going. Then the thing gets cracked. You can't keep it going, and you're thinking, yeah, right, I'm going to have to come up with something else then. There can be initially the fears due to that disruption, because that pattern was supporting something, and now there's the concern about whether it can be supported. But then once you get past that, then there's this opening to other ideas as well. There's the story of Pandora's box. That's the old traditional one, where you open the box and all these nasty things come out, right? And then they slam the lid shut, and then something says, "Oh, excuse me, I'm not bad stuff. I'm hope." And you think, "Oh, okay, let's have you out." So I think that this breach, if you like, first of all, it can raise some fears and worries and concerns. And will probably continue to do so, but then also it's going to allow this different perspective to form. And I don't think we'll go back into the box in the same way as we have come out of this. There's going to be some markedly shifted viewpoints. And I think there's going to be some shifted viewpoints about money. It's going to be a different, I think we're still going to have money, but there's going to be a slightly different view towards money. And as I try and feel into that, I'm not quite sure what that is. I can feel it. I can feel that money can't quite.
I completely agree. Pandora's box has been opened, and what comes out is chaos, pure, unadulterated chaos, because our structures have been broken. But what is the ability and the superpower of human beings? And that is that out of chaos, we can use our powers and abilities of creation to form the world and to create structures. And that is what the opportunity is that is arising.
Yes.
Completely.
And also,
that's why fear comes up. Yeah.
And also, I think the fact that we have a problem that is not just for a specific nation or a specific group, this seems to cut across all nationalities, should we say. So it doesn't matter, it cuts past, creed, whether you believe in one religion or another, or what color of the skin and whatever your nationality is, it seems to be potentially impactful. So we have a common situation to deal with, and it's not exactly a war, because we're not trying to kill each other either. We're not banding together to kill some bad guy, or suppose you could call the virus a bad guy in a way, but not exactly in that sense. So there could be new levels of cooperation that come out of this, new importances.
I think that is what makes this situation completely brand new from anything we've seen before. Like when 9/11 happened in America, there was so many Americans that banded together and so much positivity that arose on the backlash of that came through, and community coming together. But that was against like a certain community against a certain foe. And we've had that throughout history, like a certain like in a war against. This is the first time where we have actually united as a planet against a common foe. And you almost need common foes to have a reason to unite. So, yeah, but this is a precedent in that the whole planet is actually aligning and working together to face something together. And there is no race or religion or anything. Like, we're all in this. So, yeah, that is a brand new situation. That is actually something we've never had before.
Never.
Not in our history, as far as I'm aware.
Right.
No.
No. Countries have forever been, adversarial in nature. I mean, some work together, or some have periods when they work together, and then relationships sour a bit and so forth. But this will be interesting. I'm imagining that it's probably going to carry on developing and that numbers will continue to increase. But it's, I don't have a crystal ball on that, Peter. So there is a friend of mine who I work with every Sunday morning. Typically, we spend a couple of hours together in a kind of meditative space, exploring out-of-body perspectives and so forth. And he had a dream. Well, not a dream. He had an experience where he was in somebody else's body, and he was in a girl's body at the time, and she was in a conversation talking about the plague. This was, I think, this was about 10 years ago, and it left a particularly big impression on him. Talking about the plague, and it was talking from a point of the future, and it was saying that it happened in 2019, and it was going to cause chaos and with a lot of deaths. And so he has carried that and took that on board. But he is a medical doctor, or he was. He's retired, made a lot of money, and retired early, and just tours around the world. Really, he spends time in different parts of the world with his wife, and just has investments. When he saw just the very beginnings of the plague starting to bite, he looked at it for a week or so as it was just sort of happening in China, and decided that it was going to happen worldwide, and sold his entire portfolio. He said he'd never done anything like that ever before. He sold his entire portfolio in the week that the Dow Jones was at the top. He got the exact, because he said to me, and he told me, I went and sold some of mine. I sold half of mine. No, I didn't sell all of it. But yeah, he got it the exact peak, and it was just curious to me that he should have such a clear experience. Enough to have complete faith in it, but he says it hasn't gone strongly enough yet because it's going to become known as the plague. Oh, we'll see.
Very cool. Very cool. So, as it's going to come known to be the plague, does he foresee it becoming worse then?
He says he's got quite a bit to go yet, in his view. Yeah, so he's seeing a worsening situation in the next 2 to 3 months, and he has his own strategy. I don't know particularly the validity of them. I know that he's convinced in the validity. He's living out in Sweden now. He's just moved into the northern part of Sweden. He's fairly well out of the way of much to do with the virus, and he just has his own strategy for avoiding contracting it. Till late in the year, he wants not to contract it early because he thinks that within 3 to 4 months we're going to actually have some cures out, some cures and inoculations. So he thinks it's a good idea not to get the virus in the next couple of months, 2 or 3 months. and after that it will become less significant, is his view.
So another big discussion that's come out is about vaccines. What is your perspective, if you have any, on vaccines?
Well, I know that people have complained about kids being pumped full of vaccines and so forth, and with claim that it can actually cause some more subtle problems. So I don't have a gut feel on that one way or the other, Peter, because I do know vaccines in some cases have served to eliminate some really vicious illnesses that we've had on the planet. And so I think vaccines have been very, very powerful. I don't, for instance, believe particularly in flu vaccines, although they seem commonly available. I don't really want to go and pump those into my body. But talking about something like polio, then if you've got polio in your country, then having polio vaccination to me is a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe hepatitis as well. You know, there's a couple of things that can be a bit nasty, which are worth protecting against. So I don't have a view. I'd probably sit in the middle.
Because I find both of the arguments have like valid points, because there is a point that vaccines seem to cause like a small number of people to have negative side effects, but there also seems to be a lot of benefit to the majority of the population when vaccines are taken, and in preventing a lot of possibly worse things from coming up. So, and many big issues have been prevented through vaccination in the past.
Yeah, I think that especially in times of lack of hygiene and so forth, that vaccination was particularly important. Perhaps that's important now that health conditions generally are better, food quality is better, germ handling hospitals, there are lots of things have got better, so maybe we have slightly less need of vaccinations than we did before.
Yeah, necessary like a yearly flu jab is, for example. But yeah, that's what you mean.
Do you have a flu jab?
I have actually never been vaccinated in my whole life.
Ah.
But that's because my mum is personally against vaccines, so I've always been sheltered from them. And then, as far as I'm aware, flu jabs aren't something that most people get. I think it's more like prescribed to like more elderly people, at least in this country.
Yeah.
Not something I've been exposed to.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that down at our local medical practitioners on the wall. They're suggesting vaccines, especially for flu for older people.
Well, I think there's a Chinese proverb or saying or something. May you live in interesting times, and I think we definitely do. And I don't know if that's a gift or a curse, but I say bring it on.
Well, as I understood that one, that was considered to be a curse in the way it was packaged, but actually put it the other way and said, may you live in boring times. I think none of us would be very inspired by that one either. So this is a matter of perspective. Yeah. So, yeah, our conversation has been a bit dominated by the current circumstances, which is, of course, very understandable because these are really, really unusual circumstances and potent in their impact. How personally, Peter, in the last, 2, 3, 4 weeks and so forth, with your attitude to consciousness, it's impossible that something's changing with you. It's always going to be detail mark 374. spot 6.
Like in the last week, I don't know what's happened exactly, but I actually feel really like clear and like really in my center, and I've just been feeling like a lot of things that I used to judge myself about have just like I just won't be judging myself about them, and I feel like I'm living more full on, and I'm really involved at the moment, and I feel like things are great for myself personally. Like life's just not not as not pretty awesome. I feel like things are moving forward, and personally, I'm very inspired to keep at it. And like I was saying, like I've actually saved more money in the last month, basically made more money in the last month than I have in the last like bunch of months before that. And not just financially speaking, but I feel like I'm just prioritizing more clearly, and I'm just moving clearly forward in action. But I think the springtime might have something to do with that as well. And like life is coming back into the planet, and it's interesting. It sort of comes up as a big thing starting at the spring, almost like to try and fight the forces of renewal. But I think the planet's renewing in a different way than what we might want or expect. I think things are moving forward, energetically speaking. Although on the outside, they might not be happening the way we want them to. But the way we respond to that is our choice. And maybe be blessed with the sights to see that we have that choice, because we all have that choice to choose how we proceed.
Choose how we respond. And also there is this opportunity to choose who we want to respond as, because that influences the set of viewpoints that's offered. Yes.
And when playing with the viewpoints, like you said, we've got more and more of an ability to see things from multiple vantage points. And I think the way to determine which vantage point is the best is which one feels better. If one vantage point is just feeling like not that kind of heavy, we can choose a different vantage point. And we also don't want to get stuck like, oh, I can't decide which vantage point I'm going to look at. Pick one, live with it, make it happen, and then look back on the experience. When I picked that vantage point, you know what? That perspective sucked. It caused a lot of harm and a lot of pain, and I didn't feel good about it. But I'm not going to hold that against myself. I'm not going to hold that against the planet. I'm going to learn from it. Let's try a different perspective next time. And that can happen moment to moment. Like we pick a perspective, we see immediately how it's affecting other people. We can switch it up. We've got that opportunity all the time. Maybe we did get scared at first from the coronavirus. I know I did. I know everybody did, at least for a moment that came in. And then we saw how that was affecting the people around us. And we were like, well, actually, I don't want the people I love to be affected in this way. And that's just a really quick mirror that we all experienced. And I think that's going to bring in lightness as well. And we have that choice. And I think people are seeing it, and it is coming through. But we should see how this unfolds. Only time will tell.
It's curious how that works in the sense that, looking at reality, and you say, oh, well, this is this. And because you're saying, yeah, but it's true, but it's this and it's true. And okay, yeah, but still the viewpoint you choose causes a certain energy to flow through your system. So if you have, one of 100 different viewpoints that's possible, if you choose to start to allow an uplifting and inspiring energy to flow through you, you find a way of looking at it and enable energy flow. Now it's powerful. And then also conversely being aware of how a certain viewpoint might cause quite an uncomfortable energy to flow through. And then recognizing that the perspective that's being held is the one that is allowing that energy to be attracted. There was a comment from Abraham Hicks, I think, on one of their daily comments that I saw this week, which said that basically you can get to choose what you include in your perspective. So, and when you include something, they said, paraphrasing a bit here, but they said that thing, whatever you're putting your attention on, already has its own vibration. And when you include it in your attention by bringing it into your attention, then to some degree you are connecting to whatever energies that is pulling. So if and you say, oh yeah, but I need to deal with that thing. Well, if you can deal with it, I mean, if you can take it on and you can handle coronavirus for the planet tonight, that's great. Okay, but if it's not a lot you can think about doing about it, you know, if you focus instead on viewpoints that are uplifting or empowering and so forth, you get a good energy flowing through your system. You have better energy to offer to other people, and it helps to take you forward. So this is an important piece. You know, it's for us to be getting better at this. A better awareness that we're working with energies, we're pulling certain energies through us, and we can start to become selective about that process of energies. And we do it, as you said earlier, it's how you feel. You know the kind of energy you're pulling through because you know how you feel. Did it feel good? Feeling good. so you're either cutting yourself off from energy, good energy, or you're some energy that's not really very helpful. So, you know, then you get curious and you have a look about it and you go back to the drawing board and think,
yeah. Oh man, yeah. Like, let's ask ourselves, can I do something about coronavirus? If yes, and I've got that medical expertise, hell yeah, let me jump on, let me help the teams, and let's change the world and sort this virus out. If not, that it doesn't need my attention because my attention isn't helping anybody or me, and we can find other perspectives that move us forward. Like, there's no point in me spending my whole day thinking about the coronavirus. But it's not gonna yield to me. I'm not a medical expert. So what can I do with my attention that feels good? Totally. You did perfectly, really.
Yeah.
I think it's been a really apt and appropriate conversation, and I hope that it brings like service and useful information to anybody that hears it.
Well, I hope so too, Peter.